To answer the question, should you summon for Beelzebub, aka Bubba, we need to make sure everyone has a strong fundamental understanding of everything he's bringing to the table and the very unique, powerful things he brings. From there, you can make your own assessment whether or not you personally should summon. I'll cover in this video early game, mid game, late game, end game, all those hypotheticals, every idea, thought, helpful piece of advice I can think of. But at its core, I still see a fundamental misunderstanding about how special he can be. That doesn't mean you need him on your roster this second, but some of us should make him a top priority. Of course, we are having a big pulls party tomorrow, so if you decide you want to pull on this Zilitu Beelzebub banner, the link to sign up for the pulls party is in the description of this video in the top pinned comment. As well, you can find it on my Discord, the Fast and the Fastidious. So here is a piece of content I did not show in my content guide yesterday. Go check that out. I showed Beelzebub in 5 different pieces of content with 5 brand new unique strategies and team comps that only he enables. Dolores cannot enable those strategies, nor can Constance. Here's another amazing example. So you can see we are on AMR 22. I haven't even beaten it yet. I just quickly beat 19, 20, and 21 on the test server so I could show you a first clear over here. Nice little rhyme. So I want to show you the conventional way I do it. So if I was doing a takeover for you, if I was doing a showcase or something, this is my best strategy. You run Piercer and you run Cultist, and then you will use Dolores and Greed. You want an inspiration hero to help everyone out, and you want some nice, consistent slows. So I'm not going to do the whole run with this team, but I want to show you the baseline of where kind of the meta strategy is now, at least the way I like to do it. So we're going to take our 1 fighter unit. Magda is the best in the game for this. Place her here, pointed down. Then we wait. We're going to get Dolores over here. She's in the Wings of Grace set. We'll port this over directly to Beelzebub shortly. You can see 12% boost. That is on Magda. And then we will get Virna here pointed down. We wait till we have 25 cost, and we're going to place Greed right here pointed up. This is how I always like to do it. I'll show you the Greed build after this. The Dolores build will be directly moved over to Beelzebub. But you can see we need an inspiration hero, and we need a crowd control hero. Those are the roles, right? The power of Bubba is that he's going to do both those things and frees up a whole extra spot. You'll see that very shortly. So let's start ulting. As soon as Magda can go, we can go. There's some slows from Greed. Very nice. Let's get those numbers down. Let's get an ult from Virna. And you can see we're using Epic Lords. I have some broken sets here, but we clear it. We go from there, right? We place our Silas. We place our Broke here. We're off to the races. Later on, we've got Hex. You'll see that in the full run now. That's how this works. So that was our DPS. That's what we're working with. That's our baseline. That's the current, at least the way I approach it. That is my meta. That's my best strategy. And I've done it on, at this point, dozens and dozens of takeovers. It's great, right? But the gearing requirement's a little higher. We just have essentially the 2 DPS for that bottom main lane. We've got Virna and we have got Magda. Beelzebub, I'm not saying his inspiration is better than Dolores. Even at a 3 with a perfect maxed out exclusive or Tear of Twilight, Beelzebub is going to come in compared to Dolores at about 98% in terms of inspiration. However, this is the key thing, guys, and this is going to be the theme of the video. And again, I'm not telling you what to do, at least not yet. This isn't advice. This is just something I think everyone should understand. Dolores is not a healer. She does nothing. Her heals are so tiny and marginal, especially later on in the game, they're useless. All she does is give the highest inspiration in the game. With all the content we have right now, we can afford very often to use heroes that only do one thing. Beelzebub does like 6 things very well with a very unique range. That multi-use, to me, for a lot of content, as you guys saw in my guide yesterday and you're about to see right now, I think is more powerful and more important than slightly better inspiration. And whether you think it's slight or not, 87% inspiration of Dolores is kind of not a significant difference, except for very early mid-game things, you know, early late game, getting your first 50K, if you get really stuck in DPS on APOC, but eventually those are not problems you have. The problems you have are having well-rounded units and only so many spots on your roster in the team comp you're running for any piece of content. So now, Beelzebub is replacing Dolores and Greed at once. He will provide inspiration like Dolores, and he is going to provide tons of slows, even better than Greed, because the entire 22-second duration of his ultimate, he'll not just be giving inspiration, but he'll be giving constant slows across a much wider range. So he's just straight up better than Greed for this. And as you're going to see, even with these builds, he's more than good enough at the inspiration, and it's quite close to Dolores. So let's find a Nora So because, let me actually port the gear over, and I'll show you the gear now quickly. This is the gear on Dolores. We'll move that directly over to Beelzebub right now. There he is. Oh, got to go to gear swap. We go over here. Let's find Dolores. Voila, port that right over. For the artifact, just to keep things accessible, we're all going to get his artifact, his exclusive, for free from the artifact fusion. At least if you're watching this video at the time all these things are happening and are current. We'll just throw that on base promotion. It's fine. Plus 20% attack. We're cooking. Don't worry. And then, because he's doing the job of Greed and Dolores, we have an open spot. I don't need to use these epic lords. We have a free spot. So we bring a whole extra DPS. So whatever inspiration loss he has comparatively to Dolores, we more than make up for by bringing a Nora, a whole extra DPS unit, who, by the way, will also fit into Beelzebub's inspiration range. So you can see this is our Nora. Nice little build here. Didn't even crit capper. Doesn't even matter because this is overkill. He makes it so easy. If it was a sweatier run, yeah, we'd need to gear her to the nines, but it doesn't matter. Here's our Virna and Broken Set. You kind of get the picture. So let me actually just show you, instead of talking and talking and talking, let's head into battle and see why he's so flipping cool, right? So we got Magda here. We're going to place our inspiration here. That's Beelzebub. And look, I'm going to place him right here. And look at that. This whole range, as the units come in, he's covering slows with all of this. Typically, we just place Greed here. So now we got 2 more squares covering both lanes. We're going to hit 1 vertical lane earlier on both horizontal lanes. We can still put our Virna here because his range is crazy. We're not as squished as with Dolores. We wait. And now, when we get 22 costs, instead of now, remember before it went Magda, then Dolores, then Virna, then Greed, we already got Dolores and Greed right here in Beelzebub. So actually, when we go to place another one, we've got our 22 cost for a Nora. So this is normally we'd be waiting for 25 costs to place Greed. It'd be happening around the same time because Bubba's 5 costs more than Dolores. But instead of having to go and place Greed here pointed up, we can actually just place a Nora equal spot covering the same area pointed down, a whole extra DPS. Bubba, again, is doing the inspiration job and the crowd control job. By the way, the whole time placing magic vulnerability. Greed does do some solid magic res reduction, so a bit of a trade-off there. But this constant crowd control, and you'll see the whole duration of the ult, he's doing his little vortex and then consistent full slows as opposed to the bursty AoE slows like Greed does, and he's hitting all the units. It's pretty remarkable. So you can see we got a whole extra DPS by running a new strat, and this new strat is only possible because of Beelzebub entering the game. Obviously, you can beat it without this. I did. You did if you beat it already. He's not even in the game yet. But for people, you can already start seeing how if we start getting new, harder content, you're going to want someone that can do multiple jobs. At least I am. Again, we'll cover all that for all your personal specifics later on. Don't worry. So we can go here. We can already, as soon as they start entering, already go with Beelzebub. You're going to place Hollow right here. As soon as Magda can go, we'll go. And I mean, look at this. So much DPS. You can see I can trigger with Virna. And then, let's just do cleanup crew with Nora. Why not? We've got all this extra stuff, all this extra DPS, and it's all enabled by Beelzebub. You can see an interesting thing I did here is I upshifted everything because this Silas is good enough to not need inspiration. Quite frankly, Silas is always good enough if he has a decent build for that. If you wanted to, you could downshift everything and then put guys over here. That's another great option. Then you just have to do like that. The difficult thing is just fitting Broke here into healing range for Hollow. So play around with that, but you can just downshift everything if you want. I just like this because Bubba can cover everything and it looks similar to the original comp. But you can imagine if he was here, if Hollow was here, if Silas was here, and then these two ladies were down here, it works, it cooks. And then you can see Broke here would still be in Hollow's range. We wait. I'll do the whole run really quickly for you guys. So you can see, unlike Dolores, who attack speed does not affect her attack interval, for Beelzebub, it does. So as soon as there's people to hit in range and he gets extra periodic rage regen from his ultimate, he can just start blasting, right? His rage just shoots up. So even though some people are saying because of Dolores' passive, she can cycle much better and you need A3 for Beelzebub, for almost no content do I find that to be true from all my testing. We do need Magda to come back around, so come on, Magda. But look at that. We don't have to worry about the slows falling off at any moment. Let's get ready. And there we go. We had all that extra time, even though our cycling got out of sorts, because unlike Greed, it's not like slow for 8 seconds and off. slow for 8 seconds and off. It's a consistent slow, consistent crowd control for all 22 seconds. It's the best AoE slow in the game by a lot. So he's not just an inspiration hero, you know? All this crazy stuff he's capable of. When that breaks, we can drop Hex here. Here's hoping this Hex build is good enough. You can see now Magda's not going to be ready, but we are ready with Anora and with Virna. There's probably a good argument you could switch their spots, get an early burst with Anora, and then have Virna covering later on for that cleanup crew kind of thing. As soon as we're ready, we can ult with Hex. Let's wait here. So you can see Bubba right when they're entering his area. He's at about 80%, maybe closer to 70. But he can get hits, and he's hitting at a 1.0 second interval just about. So we can start spamming this. There we go. Let's go with Virna. Let's get some extra burst with the Nora. The slow's still going. We just need Magda on cleanup crew. Here comes Magda. Perfect. And again, I did not really gear these guys like crazy. This whole thing is just really nice and enabled because we get constant slows, and everything is just really, we got the extra DPS spot. So there's a lot more breathing room. You know, if there was just the 2 DPS, all those times Magda and Virna would not have handled that themselves. So we're getting slows. He still does slows on his basic stuff. We need this ult from Virna though. Come on, baby. And there we go. Perfect. So there's like I'm not saying this is exactly how you need to do it and you need to summon Beelzebub because of this, but this is a whole new strategy that's only possible because of him. So I really encourage you to think, especially if you're late in endgame, what do you need on your account? I don't need anything on my account right now. I beat all the content in the game, but what could come that could challenge you? Not everyone needs to think this way, but this is how I'm thinking. Content where I'm really struggling to bring enough heroes and I need heroes that can wear a lot of hats. Bubba, Beelzebub is the definition of a lot of hats. Quickly, just to show you the DPS builds, I mean, it's just not possible to clear that bottom with broken sets unless you're bringing extra DPS, I mean, or you have really phenomenal gear. And you'll see we're making that happen. Here's Magda, here's Anora. We did go the full set for her. And here is Virna. It's pretty darn cool. We could optimize this Beelzebub build a lot. I just wanted to do a direct comparison between him and Dolores. So even though he's like only getting just a hair under 12k attack, plus the boost he's going to get the 20% from the base level Carrion's Call, it's more than enough because he enables new strategies and you can put your value and your gearing in other places. Really just lowers that gear requirement for a lot of content. So finally, before I start dishing out advice, I really hope that painted the picture of the points I'm trying to make. Again, I'm not trying to tell you exactly what you have to do. I'm just trying to say unique heroes allow for really cool, unique things. And you know they're going to keep throwing crazy stuff at us. So here are my ratings. I took away their overall ratings because this is dependent on a lot of things. I'll probably go over my new overalls. Overalls, hey, I'm going to wear some new clothes in a different video because I am going to add double S as an option. Previously, it can only go up to S+. These are both, obviously, in my opinion, fantastic heroes. I thought lightning quick. I've rated them all. I was going to take you through each piece of content and talk about who I think is better just for that. Let's do a little Bubba versus Dolo. So Guild Boss 1, in general, I'd definitely say Dolores is better. She's very conventional, especially because you just need to get your 50k and then stop. The easiest way to push that, you really just want to crank the DPS to the moon, especially if you can pull her exclusive artifacts so you don't have to worry about RNG. I think she will remain the meta option above Beelzebub and Constance. The very unique, cool thing about Beelzebub, if you didn't see my content guide, again, go watch it. His 5x3 range allows you to bring more than just 3 DPS melee units. Dolores can only cover 3 DPS melee spots, or just 3 melee spots in general, so only 3 of those can be inspired. Bubba can cover up to 6 if you need. But I still think, because Infernal is really meta here, and Cultist definitely isn't, you don't need his slows, you don't need the magic vulnerability, especially if you don't have him A1 or higher. I think Dolores wins here. Guild Boss 2, I think Dolores wins. I think it goes Constance is the best by a lot, in my opinion, just for how strategies and placements go. Then it's Dolores, and then Bubba. You need eventually, probably, certainly if APOC 3 is coming, you need at least 2 inspiration heroes. We might need 3. He's clearly top 3 at it. But I think just the way his range goes, unless you're bringing some very unique team comp, because Cultist is completely not meta, I do think Dolores wins in Guild Boss 2. In Gear Raid 1, if we could give triple S in pieces of content, which is not something I do, that is Beelzebub. I think he's probably like him and Boreas and Ingrid. This is the very short list of the absolute best Gear Raid 1 heroes in the whole game. You can see in my content guide, he enables whole new placement strats, constant crowd control to enable the Lord skill from whatever Cultist Lord you're using. If you do that, Cultist, his faction is extremely meta. He can give inspiration to the whole bottom melee spots, all 3 of them. So you can do very different, fun DPS things. And he can cover both platform groupings. He's just completely amazing. Amazing for Gear Raid 1. Dolores is still great, but Bubba wins here. Gear Raid 2, you can watch my content guide again. In my opinion, by a lot, Beelzebub wins here. It depends what you're running, but the slows allow you to not sweat costs as much. You can leave Dallin at home if you want, because you don't have to use tanks the first time. He slows him down so much, provides a little DPS. The inspiration is going to be more than enough for anything. If you choose to run like Virna or Anora, some kind of bursty cultist comp, this is the way to do it. He's going to get the cultist boost. You're not running Infernals for Gear Raid 2, and he enables the Lord skill once again with the slows. The magic vulnerability is really useful here as well. Gear Raid 2, I think he's better for, assuming you have, it depends on what heroes you have, but in general, if you had all the decent heroes for it, definitely Beelzebub wins here. Gear Raid 3, in my opinion, Beelzebub definitely wins here again. Again, you can see the content guide I put out yesterday, but he allows you to put your 2 main marksman DPS, Idril, and then Silas or Sargok or Yuri or whoever you're using, Liam if you need, up to the front squares instead of having to hide Idril in the back. This makes your Idril ult cycling so much easier. It makes you less reliant on Laurel. They're both fantastic here. If you really need a sweat for the DPS and inspiration is the issue, not cycling Idril's ult. In my experience, cycling Idril's ult is the hard part. That's why I prefer Bubba. But if you just need more DPS, then it would be Dolores. This one's closer, but Gear Raid 3, I would go for Beelzebub again. Gear Raid 4, Beelzebub's the best in the game now for the bottom. He does Greed's job while still providing inspiration. Again, you can see that in my guide from yesterday. It's crazy. And then actually for the top, that's typically where I use Dolores, helping Valkyra or Thalon or Eris. In my opinion, Beelzebub is still better here. He provides the magic vulnerabilities, which, Valkyra does it herself, but the other ones don't, so that's really helpful. And the slows, if you're tight on the DPS, buys you a lot of extra time. Remember, if we go to Beelzebub's kit, I know I'm not doing a whole skills breakdown here, but just to explain it to you, from his talent, you can see whenever he deals damage or his summons deal damage, he does a minus 50% slow, so a half speed slow. He does do the bigger version, the 75% when he's ulting, but even his basic attacks are always doing it. So you're going to have him ulting at the right moments, but even still, it's constant AoE slows. It is phenomenal. So he's so good for the bottom and the top in Gear Raid 4. Gear Raid 5, you don't need inspiration, but because you don't need it, you don't need extra of it from Dolores. If you're going to go for it, I would slightly prefer Bubba because you're getting vulnerabilities if you're running any magic damage, but most importantly, the slows buy you a lot of time, and he can deal a little bit of DPS. AMR, you just saw, we do need to bump Dolores up to S because that's an old grade from before we had 19, 20, 21, and 22. She's great in 20 and 22, obviously, but Beelzebub is better. You just saw. We can't fight on that. For Void Rift, you don't really use inspiration, but Beelzebub you will use, so he is going to get the S+, really just as a debuffer support crowd control unit. That S+ is not really, inspiration's a great added bonus, but he is insane for all the stuff he enables, and cultists are quite meta in your Void Rift progression. Also for things like the epilogue for Soleil when you need 2 inspiration heroes, there you go. You got a second one if you didn't already have Dolores and Constance. Campaign, Dolores is not needed in campaign. We should bump her just because of chapter 10 though. But Bubba is goated for campaign. He'd be the hardest carry you could get. Faction trials, they're both phenomenal for their respective factions. If you have them, you're obviously using them. Healer faction, Dolores is for some cool cheesy strats you can do with Silas. That's where she got her B, but she's not a healer. Beelzebub's not a good choice here. For Styx, Constance is the super meta right now. Beelzebub beats her. He does at least as much inspiration and with better builds, and then eventually with Awakenings, he does more than her, and he's putting out hits, tons and tons of hits. He can go a lot faster than Constance. It's pretty darn cool. He's definitely the best inspiration hero in the game for Styx. Dolores can't cover every spot because of how the Styx maps work, so she doesn't work there. Arbiter of Frost, he actually does deserve a rating here, but I would say Dolores is definitively better if you can get her exclusive because Infernal is super meta. Dolores is great there. For Torrent, they're both phenomenal. I do, guess gun to my head, probably prefer Beelzebub because the slows give your big AoE units like Razak and Nyx, or earlier on if you have Maul, gives them a lot more time to kill everything, and you're kind of leaning really hard on your Nyx, stuff like that. But yeah, you just need an inspiration hero. And now this is where it's kind of crazy for me. And I know some people on a video, on another creator's video, said I've been describing Beelzebub like he's the second coming of Christ. I mean, I wouldn't say that. And certainly you're going to see in the conclusions of this video, I don't think everyone needs to pull for him this second. But just because you don't need to pull for him this second, part of that reason is because we've got a great free-to-play epic option that doesn't take away from how insanely good he is, right? Just because you might personally not need him in this moment, that doesn't take away from how potent he is at this stuff. And I think he really pulls away from Dolores. Quite frankly, I think he's a better hero than Dolores overall, because when you get into PvP, it's a whole nother world. So let's talk about, we split our Guild Wars up, our ratings, into two different things. We have our BP affiliation, so this is affiliating your demon soldiers when you're doing Guild Wars on offense, and then you've got defense. We can start with the obvious one. Defense, he's going to be very meta for cultist teams. Cultists are off meta, so very meta gives you S+. Very meta for off meta gives you S. He'll be very good there. Maybe he drops down to an A+, but he won't go lower than that. The slows are crazy. I mean, everyone's using Mari and Greed. He's right there with them while still giving inspiration, while doing vulnerabilities, while having the crazy range, all the Bubba things we've grown to love, or at least I have. Dolores is unusable on Guild Wars defense. And then for BP, Dolores is very low BP. You'll never use her for affiliation. Beelzebub is the #1 normal unit you can pull in the game for battle power. Full stop. So for Demon Soldiers affiliation, not counting special ancient exclusive legendary lords, not counting ancient exclusive heroes like Uridin and Jira, very hard to get heroes, and not counting Maw, who is not in the summoning pool yet, he is the best. He's the best normal hero you can pull in the whole game. So for people saying you don't need him, if you're endgame, you kind of, I mean, unless you have incredible BP options, a couple Uridins with Awakenings and Jira and Yovar and Ingrid, or your Maw is super built out, most people are going to want him for this at the very least, because he is literally the best you can pull in the game from your normal blue and gold summons. Let's go to the arenas. In general, I just think Dolores is just S across the board. She's not in any top meta teams anymore, because that is all run by our ancient exclusive lords, and you don't need Dolores for that. You know, Valderon for single target, or Praetus for single target, and then for AoE and anti-air, the crazy Praetus and Ingrid stuff. So she's just a solid S. For Bubba, an S in all of it. I mean, the 5 cost is amazing. For Bubba, he gets a slight knock against Dolores because he has the higher cost. In single target, I think Dolores is the better option. In anti-air, I think it's a wash, though I would lean Dolores. In AoE, though, I think he will, if not enable another meta for AoE to go up against, you know, the crazy meta of Praetus and Ingrid, it will be, I think it will enable a second or third one. So it's going to be one of the top 3 options. He will make cultists cook. I do think that. I think he's going to be phenomenal for that. So all in all, we're not going to do overalls now. I guess gun to my head, I probably would give them both double S, something like that. I mean, it's all borderline. We got to discuss it in a different video. These are 2 phenomenal heroes, and there's a strong argument, don't think I'm some crazy delusional person, that you shouldn't go for Beelzebub depending on where you are in the game, because Dolores, for everything we have in the game right now, is enough. For progressing, as you can see, I do think Bubba is going to be better, but he is a bigger investment. To get him perfect, you'll want Awakenings and you'll want high promotion artifacts, whereas Dolores is very plug and play, and we don't need all this extra. The extra can make stuff easier. Gear Raid 1 can become easier. Gear Raid 2, Gear Raid 3, Gear Raid 4, AMR, but we can still beat all that stuff. So it comes down to, as we answer that question, should you summon, it comes down to what your priority is right now. If you're a low spender or a free-to-play, and especially if you're light on summons heading into Valentine's Day, of course I don't think you should summon, and I've never said you should. People are acting like I told everyone to summon, not to get defensive, but to get a little defensive. I never said that. I said he was coming, I said he was going to be amazing, and maybe people should save summons, but I never said you need to all summon right now. And in this video right now, I'm saying that's not the case, right? So if you're a low spender, and certainly if you're free to play, I've said this the past 2 weeks when we compared him to Silas and when we compared him to Yuri, the top priority is making sure you have 200 summons for the Valentine's Day hero. A bird in the hand is worth so much more than the gamble to go for someone's banner when every time you hit a legendary on the Beelzebub and Zilitu banner, we'll talk about Zilitu for 1 second at the end of this video, Every time you're summoning there and you're hitting legendary, it's only a 20% chance you are going to get Beelzebub, right? So that's a gamble. If you're not having a ton of saved, or you're not a big spender, or you're free to play, I know a lot of people are hesitant about spending right now. Obviously, you go for the guarantee. Obviously. So moving out of that, if you're early game, mid game, even the early part of the late game, and you are a spender, I would definitely take some gambles at this, because as I think I've broken down in my content guide yesterday, as I showcased in AMR 22 today, he lowers your gear requirement and will allow you to blast towards the end game faster than Dolores through all this key content. A lot of people just think the only thing in the game is Guild Boss 1 and Guild Boss 2. They are so important, but to succeed in those, you need to get through all this other stuff at some point. He is better for most of it than Dolores. For PvP, he's definitively better. If you care about Guild Wars, he's someone everyone will want to have eventually with multiple awakenings. So that's definitely something to think about. So if you're a spender and you're still progressing through, that is key. Finally, endgame players. Endgame free to play, endgame low spender. It is up to you, right? Do you think you need him? If you're endgame, you beat everything, so you don't need anything, right? When I know people kind of scoff when I say that, I don't use Silas on my account. I don't use Sung Wukong on my account. I really don't. I use Silas literally nowhere except for Furious Torrent. I use Sung Wukong literally nowhere except for single target arena. I mean, it becomes that specific later on. It's like you beat everything, so everything's perfectly optimized and everyone has a very specific role. That doesn't mean Sung Wukong and Silas aren't total gods, because obviously they are. So very, very well, if you're endgame, you don't need anything. I mean, there's an argument you need Beelzebub because of the BP affiliation, but if you're endgame and you've got your couple Uridins and your Yovar and your Ingrid and your Jira and your Ma, maybe you don't. So then it kind of comes to the view I have, which is what could be coming? What could be changing? I think there's a real chance, in Guild Boss 1, Nightmare 5, maybe Bubba is the meta. We don't know. We'll have to see. That's something that could happen because he's so much more versatile than Dolores, and his range is so much better than Constance. Maybe they're going to give us a Gear Dungeon 3. That's a place you could see him shining. I already feel like with a lot of endgame content, outside of boss content, we start outgrowing Dolores. I mean, it's kind of clear as day. You can beat both Gear Dungeons without her. You can beat tons of endgame stuff without her, and she doesn't really have such a place in the meta PvP things, and no place in Guild Wars. So to me, I'm not on my account right now, I'm just on the test server. I have 71 divine summons. I'm a man of my word, and I'm never wavered on this. They've all been saved for Beelzebub. They will get used for him this freaking weekend, because to me, these are the kind of heroes I want. Insanely unique, can do many jobs, can really shoot me into whatever the next endgame content is. I think he's the kind of hero I want to bet on and invest in and hope I get lucky with. If you don't see that and you're endgame, then don't. Just hold out to spam guaranteed banners or wait for a Kigiri or Sung Wukong rerun. Totally get that. Totally get that. So it's up to you. If you're a big spender or a decent spender, you should go for it. If you're low or free to play, make the assessment for yourself. Guys, that's basically going to cover it. Again, we're doing a big polls party tomorrow, so if you want to participate, definitely check out the link in the description in the top pinned comment. Sign up. I hope to see you there. And yeah, you can catch me on Twitch where I'm pulling 70 divine summons, 70 gold summons for Beelzebub. I know this was a different kind of video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you made it to the end. Let me know in the comments if you made it to the end of the video. Finally, I almost forgot about Zilitu. Here you go. She's still a fantastic hero, phenomenal magic DPS fighter, but fighters are so oversaturated. I don't think she's at the point anymore in the meta where she's someone you're seeking out on her banners, but that doesn't take away from the fact that she's like right about a top 10 fighter in the game, and she is phenomenal. So picking her up this weekend, or if you do want to summon for her, that's never a bad idea. Especially if you're early game and mid game and you're trying to progress your Guild Boss 1 and you've got a Pyros or a Twin Fiend, she's the perfect pairing with that. Very strong. I wouldn't tell you to summon for this banner specifically for her, though, as good as she is. And I did just want to defend her because some people are talking about like Zilitu isn't good anymore. That is baloney. But without a doubt, she's kind of fallen into off meta right now. Thank you for watching. I've been Fastidious. I need a glass of water. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.